So again, I'm Linda Sollars, and I have a business that works in career consulting, been doing it for about 15 years, called Creating Purpose. And I do a lot of presentations and trainings and that sort of thing. So about 8 years ago, I really found that people I was working with had a really hard time trying to explain what they're looking for next, and explaining it to people in informational interviews or ways even on LinkedIn to explain what they're looking for next. So I developed something called a job framework. That is a way that you can put together a document that you can give to people when you're interviewing, informational interviewing, send it to them on Zoom, all of those kinds of things. And it allows you to show them what you're looking for. It ends up looking like a job description for your ideal job. It's not hard to do. So I'm going to walk you through it, and then hopefully we have some time for questions afterwards. If not, I am teaching another class at 11 today. So if we don't, you certainly can send me an email at creatingpurpose.com, and I'd be happy to answer anything that you have on there. So I'm going to get started and show you this way of doing things that I think is very helpful to people that are trying to talk about what they are really wanting to be doing. So everyone can see this screen, yes, that says Creating Your Job Framework, I hope?
Yes.
Okay, good. So job framework, basically it is a document that's between 12 and 18 bullet points. It would be like a job description that describes what you're looking for next. You can use it for career changes, for resume updates, for LinkedIn updates, for informational interviews and other things, but these are the main ones. So you have someone that you meet or a friend of yours says, well, what are you looking for? And trying to describe that to them where they can really understand it is very difficult for people. And oftentimes if you're in an informational interview and you're trying to describe it, you can see people kind of glassing it over and not really understanding what you're looking for, which is not helpful to informational interviews for sure. So it's much easier than you think. It clearly defines your next career. It's an excellent way to describe job duties on your resume, and it's a powerful way to clarify your intentions. So starting out with a career change, how do I start with this? Well, you need to clearly define your parameters. So if you want to drive, how far do you want to drive to work? And I hear people that I work with all the time that say to me, as far as I need to. And I say to them, okay, so you live in Denver, that means you're going to be driving to Oklahoma. And they say, well, no. And I said, well, what about Fort Collins? Oh, no. Okay, what about Boulder? No, too far. So I want people to be very clear on what they're looking for, because it's important for you to define what you're looking for and what you're not looking for. Both of those are very important. Do you want to travel? And I have people that tell me all the time, yeah. And I say, how much? And they say, oh, 25% of the time. I said, all right, you're going to be gone 1 week a month. Oh, no. I don't want to be gone that much. So really, you want to look at how many times you might want to be gone. Obviously, we're in a time with COVID that not a lot of people are traveling, but that is going to open up again. And so looking at that, and do you want to go internationally? Do you want to go by plane? Do you want to just travel if you need to around the city by car? Those are important things to set up. What type of office environment do you want? And people will say, well, do I have a choice? Well, yes. Do you want to work from home? Do you want to work in an office that has actual office doors? Do you want to work in an open area where everyone's desk is right by one another and there's no offices and there's no cubes? That very much is an attraction for people who are termed millennial, that age group from somewhere around maybe 24 to 38. But that you need to define what kind of office environment you want. This is before you go and look for a job. These are the very important things. And then flexibility. What kind of flexibility? I've heard several people on here saying, I can only work part-time. I need to work in an environment that doesn't have chemicals. I need to work in an environment where I'm not standing or walking, and that's fine. Clarify what you need. Be very clear about it before you start looking for the job, because that will very much help you in what you're doing. So one of the things that I have here is I talk about Michelangelo's David. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that statue. That statue is one that was created out of one piece of marble. And that marble happened to be a very ugly piece of marble. Two other very well-known sculptors had tried to sculpt something out of it, and they gave up and just put it in, basically in the trash. Michelangelo took it and created this beautiful statue of David. And people at the time asked him, how did you see David in that ugly piece of marble? And he said, I chipped away everything that wasn't David. And I tell that to my clients because I want them to chip away everything that isn't them. They don't want to drive a certain place. If they want to work in a particular area, if they're looking for a particular benefits, a particular salary range, not specific, but a salary range, if they're looking for a specific type of industry, all of those things be very specific on. I know everyone says, well, you just leave yourself open, but if you leave yourself open to anything, you will get very, very frustrated because you're bouncing all over the place looking at things that may or may not work. And that also means if you find a job and you're thinking about it, but you're just not sure, and they call you and they want to interview you, have questions available on what is the work environment there? How do you set things up? What is the flexibility in terms of working at home or doing something hybrid? And what are the travel requirements? Sometimes they don't put that into jobs. And looking at what kind of benefits they would offer if they expect you to drive in. Do they pay for parking? Do they pay for other types of things? What kind of professional development do they offer? In other words, what kind of trainings can you have or they offer on the job? Those are questions that you should develop and not ask them in a rough way, but ask them in a very creative way. Just one very quick thing, at the end of interviews, I always tell clients to ask this question. Can you tell me two things that work really well in this position and two things that are a challenge? That way you get an idea of what is working well and what their pain points are and what they're trying to fill in, for instance, for your job. And maybe sometimes you can answer that. Oftentimes I have clients come back to me and say to me things like, they said, boy, that's the best question we've ever been asked. So it's a really helpful one for you as well. So come on, what happened here? So I just want to talk about career designing. There are people in an age group that are usually over 45 to 50 that have been taught, my father said to me all the time, you live to work. You need to be able to find a job that you can work at. You need to be working, and however many hours you need to work, you do it because that's the way it is. But people that are under about 40, 45 tend to work to live. So they are people who are looking at an 8 to 5 job. They're looking at time limits. They're looking at times they can define for their time outside of work. And I strongly recommend that you decide to look at that kind of thing as well. Not that, that working and dedicating things to this, but having a work-life balance is really, really important. We found in the COVID times, everybody working from home or not working, that they have developed a different sense of how they relate to family, how they relate to home, what they really would like. Do they want to go back into an office? Do they want to work part-time? It's an important thing to do that. So we'd look at organizations and options of what you're going to be looking at. When you want to go and start doing this job framework, you want to start searching for positions that might interest you. Don't search just by job titles. Search by your strengths, if you know what your strengths are. Search by keywords that are very interesting to you, something about the job that you have really wanted to do. You'd be surprised the number of jobs that post that have strengths in them, or you can find a lot more about a job rather than just putting a job title in there. And I'm talking LinkedIn, or looking at Indeed or Glassdoor, or onto Andrew Hudson's website or other types of websites. You want to search by looking at other things other than job titles. So the next thing you do is define approximately 10 organizations that interest you. Look at their websites, the words that align with your interests. Look for their vision or their mission statement or how they describe them. Look at their career and job pages. How do they define jobs? How do they look at titles? You can and add those in, and I'll show you how to use those. Use your strengths to search and go into ONET. ONET also has some great definitions under job. You fill in the job category and it gives you many definitions on that. Then you can use this to start updating your resume. How do you begin to do that? Well, you go to LinkedIn or Glassdoor or a company site you found, builtin.com, Guild Education I just showed you, beginning to search for jobs that interest you. Don't confine it just to Denver. Go national, worldwide, whatever you need to do to look for these jobs to build this job framework. May not mean you want to do it there, but we're trying to build the framework right now. So if you're looking in LinkedIn, you can search by words, but leave the location blank, and look through jobs that show up. Look at the right side and down at the bottom of this for similar jobs that you might be interested in, for instance. Why I have this, I don't know. Then I want you to read through the job descriptions. As you read through them, I want you to identify lines or sections or words under the bullet points that describe what you want to be doing in your next job. Avoid those particular lines that describe what you've done before, but you don't want to continue doing. If you don't want to continue doing a certain thing in accounting, don't look at those lines, ignore those lines. But the ones that describe either what you've done before and what you want to do next, or describe what you haven't done, but you would be interested in doing, you cut and paste those lines onto another Word document. So go to at least 15 different jobs, read the bullet points. You may only pull 2 or 3 bullet points out of a job that says, yeah, I want to do that. And look for jobs that you wouldn't think. Look at a vice president even that you don't want to really do or don't know if you have the qualifications, because some of the bullet points are going to describe things that you want to do. You're going to cut and paste those to another Word document. Then you're going to categorize these. You should have about 2 to 3 pages of cut and paste bullet points, lines, things like that. Categorize them into groups. Groups that might say things like, this is for strategy, this is for accounting, this is for, education, all kinds of different, this is for training, all those kinds of things. Consolidate similar items, eliminate kind of duplicates, and put them together in one big page. Then you want to sort through those that you put into categories and pull out no more than 18 bullet points and put them on a third page. So now you have jobs you've looked at and you've cut and pasted. You have a second page with lots of cut and paste on it, and you put them into categories. Choose the most relevant ones you really want to do, put them on a third page, which is now your job framework. It's written in job speak because you pulled it right off of a job, and it's no more than 18 bullet points. You can use these bullet points to update your resume. If you find ones that describe something you've done better than you do, You can insert that in your resume. Also, you can use them in your cover letter. You can use power or action points from these bullet points on your resume as well. You can use the categories you put them in there. If you're doing a chrono-functional resume, that is a resume that describes here's what I know how to do as opposed to here's where I've worked. The second page has where you've worked, but mainly it's categories of what you know how to do. People use that one if they've been out of work for a significant period of time, if they want to change jobs completely. I have someone I'm working with who's an attorney and doesn't want to be an attorney anymore. So if she has a chronological resume, that's not going to help her at all, because all it shows is the places she's been an attorney. So we pulled out of what she loves to do as an attorney. She loves to research. She knows how to do these things. We pulled out categories that she can have in a chrono-functional resume underneath it, describing bullet points that maybe you pulled off of job descriptions that you like. And you can use those for cover letters. I'll talk about that in just a second. And then it's how do I update my LinkedIn profile? So there's a couple of things that you want to do. And I am going to close out this for a second. And I'm going to show you my LinkedIn profile, which I think will be helpful in when you're looking at LinkedIn in general. So hold on just 1 second here, and I will show you that one. At least I think I will. So hopefully you can see this. It has my name on it. It also has a picture at the top. This one area right underneath my name is a search engine for LinkedIn. So here you want to have things that you describe yourself. I don't want to have, now I have the fact that I'm president of Creating Purpose. I'm a career consultant. I also do instruction on certain certifications for careers. I'm an affiliate professor at Regis University. Now I have listed my business over here because it's a lot of different things I do. But if you pull up that, and the only thing it has here is the last place you worked, you don't need to duplicate it again over here. And you don't need to duplicate where you've gone to college over here. Those are already right there on LinkedIn. Then when you scroll down, you can add a section if you don't have it, and particularly add this section called About. So if you look at my About section, it has a lot of things in there. I have put a description on who I am, what I provide, what kinds of awards I've gotten, what my degrees are. I've gone into the 5 strengths from Strength Finders. And then I have something that just says specialties, or you can just have other, or you can just list them. I have Gen Y, Millennials, Gen Z. I do a lot of workshops on generations, and I don't have that up here. So I want to make sure it's in this second search engine so people can search for that. Positive psychology is another one that I do teach, and I want to make sure that if people are looking for someone that can talk about that, that is in my LinkedIn profile. So the About section and underneath your name are 2 places to make sure you have a lot of things that you really want to have in there. So hold on just 1 second. And I'm going to go back to my presentation here. Oops, sorry, wrong slide. Hold on. I have many things opened up here, unfortunately. So hold on just 1 second here. I am going to have to go back in and open this back up again. So hold on. So this is about LinkedIn and talking about the fact, as I said, be sure and put whatever you need in those 2 sections and there. You can write it in 3rd person or 1st person. I am someone, I do this, or you can write it in 3rd person. And then as I talked about, doing the words at the bottom of the page is very important. So now you're going into an informational interview. Someone said, oh, you know what? I know my brother works there, or I have a good friend who works there. Let me introduce you to them. The biggest thing that happens when you have that is, what do you do with that? So if you know someone and you're going to do it, set up a 15-minute Zoom call right now. If you can in the future, meet for coffee, or offer them that you'll buy them a bagel or donuts or something like that. You can search LinkedIn for contacts. You can search company websites for contacts. And you can go to LinkedIn to get their emails, set up the call, and then you always send your job framework to them before you get on the call. So the job framework is that 18 bullet points that you have on a document. The only thing that you have on there, there's no job title on there at all. You have your name, your email, and your phone. That's the only thing you have on there. When you send it to them or you give it to them, that's the only thing you have. Most of the time when you go to meet someone, they say, okay, how can I help you? And you need to be able to explain what you're looking for. So handing them a document and saying to them, you know, I've spent some time determining what I'm looking for based on my skills and my strengths, and here's what I've developed. And let them look through it. Let them read through it. Let them decide if this makes sense to them. It's a really helpful way, whether you're a talker or an introvert, because it describes these things to them. So it really helps them to do that kind of thing. So let them read through it and then ask them a couple of questions. What would they call this job in their organization? And who would they recommend you speak to about this position? You know, be sure you can talk about each one of the bullet points too, that are 18 that are on there, if someone asks you. But you'd be surprised. People will read it and they'll say, oh, well, we call this a XYZ job. And they will tell you that, and you'll say, who should you talk to? Well, actually, we're hiring, or we call this thing, and actually, I know someone who's hiring for that kind of position. Most HR people put together job descriptions after going through looking on LinkedIn or looking on other job sites. So people have duplicated things all over the place. So when you show them this, they're able to read through it and say, oh, well, now I know what you're looking for. Here's what I would call this. And maybe 2 bullet points don't match, but the rest of them do. And it is such a helpful thing because you will get the 2 things you want. You want contact information on who you should talk to, and you want the name of the job title so you can figure out how to search for this in other areas that you should do. So that is basically what I have talked about in terms of job framework. I know I went through this quickly, so I'm going to ask you, anybody have any questions or thoughts on this? No?
Linda, I have a question. First of all, quick, but really good. Do you work with people like, for example, myself that needs help with I'll be honest, I'm very embarrassed about my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I don't work so much on LinkedIn profiles. I will be honest with you. There are one of the people that was given here on this thing probably has a lot more information on how to completely set up a LinkedIn profile than I do. I mean, I can tell you generally what should be on there, but there are people who have taken the LinkedIn courses and are really experts in that area. So I would recommend that you talk to the person that was recommended here to do that kind of thing.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for being honest. Yeah, because that's exactly what I need. I forgot what that was, that person. I don't know if I missed it. So
Mary,
maybe
I'm going to put that in chat.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You might reach out to Don Parcher, who's should be still on here. He has done talks, conducted talks on BoulderNet where he has people bring up their LinkedIn page and he'll help people walk through that. So he might be a good person to reach out to, initially at least.
I wanted
Okay,
to
thank you.
I wanted to
Thank you.
show people one other thing, and that this is kind of an example, an instructions on how to do the job framework. I have given this document to Don, and he's going to pass this out to people or post it on your website, that kind of gives the exact step that I just went through with you to talk about how to put this together. And then the 2 questions that you might ask at the end. I was going to show you an example of someone that has done a job framework. I took their name off of here, but I will share the screen to show you kind of what someone has done. Now, this is someone who has cut and pasted a whole lot of things and has put them into categories: product marketing, strategic, process improvement, brand, product, quality assurance, all different kinds of things. And then they also have taken some jobs they found while they were doing this research that sound interesting to them. Then the next thing they're going to do is collect 18 of these bullet points on here and put them into another document. Normally, you wouldn't put categories on that document. You just have 18 of them. So yes, Lauren, you had a question?
I'm muted. My question, Linda, and go ahead and finish your example unless
That's
you're
it.
done. Are you
That was
done?
really
Okay.
what I was going to say. Mhm.
I've had a lot of people say you should know and be able to verbalize all that you just described that's in that, building that framework, and then be able to verbalize it in whatever setting. What's the benefit of handing someone the paper?
Okay, so when I showed you what this person has put together, and they're going to pick 18 of those bullet points that they really know how to talk about. So something that is talking about developing analysis and recommendations on research, they're going to know something they can actually talk about on that. The benefit of handing it to someone, if I'm in a meeting, this is what I ran into over and over again with clients. They would set up these great informational interviews and they'd say, guess what? I've got this great one. And then they'd come back and they'd say, well, I tried to explain what I'm looking for. I could tell I wasn't getting through to them. They just said, send your resume and that's fine. And nothing ever happened. Or I was in the meeting, we were having lunch together. I didn't know how to quite bring it up. I didn't know how to start talking about what I wanted to do. They didn't seem like they were that interested. All of those kinds of things. I kept hearing that over and over from people who had these great opportunities, but they weren't able to really clarify what they're looking for. Even on here with people introducing themselves, you know, they're describing a number of different things that if you had 15 minutes to talk to someone, you need to be really clear. So handing them this document and saying, this isn't everything, but this is a framework of what I've put together of things I want to be doing next. And then the person reads it and you say, I just want to know what you would call this position in your organization and who you'd recommend talking to. So I have now shown them it's written in job speak, and every time a client does this and uses it and goes out there for the last 8 years have said, I came back with 2 job descriptions, 2 people to talk to, and actually they have a job opening that I might qualify for. But you trying to explain it that's not in what I call job speak, people don't relate to that. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Thank you.
Anything else that anybody has on there? It's a really helpful document, and it's helpful for you to understand what you're looking for and use those to put on your resume, to put on your LinkedIn profile. One other thing that I was going to show you here is looking at, I don't know how many of you are familiar with cover letters, whether you are someone that does a lot of cover letters and that sort of thing. let me pull one up here. I only use one cover letter, and I've only used one cover letter for 15 years, and it's been very successful. And it's called a 2-column cover letter. I don't know how familiar people are with this, but just give me 1 second here, and I'm going to pull this up for you. Hold, please. And it's really a helpful way of putting together a cover letter that is very clear and explains to people just what they're looking for. So let me share this one with you and see if it's something that you've seen or used before. I do workshops with HR people all the time. And when I show this on a screen, people are always saying to me, why don't people use this? Because what they're doing is you're taking their job description and your resume and saying, here's why I'm qualified. So basically we have the name of the company, and you don't need to put addresses anymore on this. You have the name of the job you're applying for. You can put Department of Human Services, you can put hiring manager, whatever, unless you know the name. And then it kind of has a first thing. It says, I was drawn to your company because of the services you offer. You know, I was excited to do this. And I've also attached my resume that kind of align with my background and your job and education, skills, experience, but I want to summarize it here. So this column says you require, and I literally have pulled off, or this person has pulled off these particular bullet points that they have done before and can address. And then it says, I offer, and you can pull this right off your resume, or you can just write a little brief thing that you offer here. One thing you don't want to do is put anything about that you have a degree, because that's on your resume. But this one says ability to identify and resolve issues and roadblocks. And they own the consolidation of 3 platform features requiring a high level of understanding of technical challenge that demand creative solutions. So they've basically given an example of what they've done here. And then it says, I'd love to speak with someone. I'm looking forward to this. And then sincerely name, email, and telephone number. It sounds like, oh, that doesn't sound like it's going to be very good. But I promise you, HR people don't read cover letters very often. But HR people after HR people I talk to say, I will read this one for sure. Any questions on that?
I have a comment on that, Linda, 2 of them actually. My daughter says the average amount of time a recruiter spends on your resume / cover letter is 6 to 9 seconds. So you have to grab them in really quickly. Yep. And I just did this process. I didn't do it in columns. I did it in bullets. I just did this process for transferring teaching skills with kids to a position with adults. Mm-hmm. And, you know, similar requirements. But I went through this very process. So I'm excited to see it here in columns where it's more readily, more easily readable.
This is more easily readable. I come from a marketing world. As I told you, we always look for what we call white space. And this has a lot of white space in it. So it's easy to read and doing that kind of thing. You are absolutely right. 5 to 7 seconds is the amount of time a typical HR person will look at a resume, or a recruiter will look at a resume. So the first sentence up here better describe why you're even applying or what your interest is. The first paragraph on your resume should describe, you know, yourself and your purpose, your passion, your interests, your strengths, and also some of your skills. 4 or 5 sentences in there, definitely should have that. But I have a lot of people who have said to me, oh, I don't really want to do this. I had a client who was, he owned a business, he had sold it. He wanted to go do an executive position in Chicago. He had 3 positions he was looking at, and he was getting ready to send his cover letter. He showed me his cover letter, and it was 2.5 pages single spaced. And I told him no one's going to read that. Even though he had set up a school in Africa, he had done a lot of things. It just was really hard to find any of that in there. 2 of the jobs he absolutely was not going to use this, but I finally convinced him to use this style for his third job. It was a page and a half, which normally I only tell people to do a page, but he had a lot of things to talk about. He sent these 3 in. He only got responses from the cover letter of this one. They interviewed him, went through a number of interviews, and they hired him. And in the hiring letter, it said, one of the reasons you stood out was your outstanding cover letter. And so he brought it in to me to show me, and he said, do you want me to cut up my words, put them in a bowl with milk and eat them? I said, maybe so, because we had argued and argued over this, but it is a very powerful way. Now, if you're applying for a teaching position in a university, they want a cover letter that describes the first time you started teaching your stuffed animals at 4 years old. If you are applying to be a physician in med school, they want to know the first time you ever loved looking at blood. But other than those two, everything else, this works really well for. I have someone that I'm working with right now. Well, she's just gotten the job, but I have been working with her. She just graduated from college. She graduated in music appreciation. And, you know, what are you going to do with that kind of thing? And when we got to talking about things she'd done, she actually had put on an event when she was in college for 200 people who came to this. It was in person, and then they had to transfer it to Zoom. So she'd done both. She had all of this experience, and she really wanted to go into marketing of music. Well, there's a company in Louisville called Alfred Music, which is internationally known in writing and using music. And happens they had a marketing assistant opened. And so I had her go and look at it. She applied for it. She did her cover letter, got called right away, and interviewed twice for them. And they said, you know, you have much more experience here than an assistant. We're posting a job for a marketing manager, or for a marketing manager, and we want you to apply. And she wrote me and said, I've never been a manager of anything. I have no idea. So we talked all about it. They put the job description together. She sent it to me. And I mean, it was things like you need 7 years of piano instruction, which she had done exactly 7 years. It was that you had to put together an event for at least 200 people. I mean, they wrote the job for her. So she applied, did her cover letter again, and she's just been hired. So it is really a helpful thing for people right out of school who don't know how to write a cover letter, all the way to people who are retiring and doing things part-time.
So I just have a very quick comment. Linda, where have you been in my transition from the military? Truly, like, this is amazing, because for me, I don't want anything to do with the military. That's an easy cop out. I'm doing a complete career change, but using all the strong skills. And your job framework, I wish I had known that seriously 2 years ago, because it would have really, because I've done a ton of informational interviews. And I don't know what I don't know, and I haven't been in corporate America. I've been in the military, and we do things vastly different. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This was awesome, and I appreciate all the information. It is very useful.
Good. And you can take what you did in the military. I've worked a lot with military people. You can take what you did in the military and read job descriptions and say, well, that kind of sounds like what I've done. I think that's probably what I'm looking at here, because you're right. The military uses different terminology, uses different ways of doing things. But if you drove a tank in the military, you know, you have a number of skills that you have done, you know, and coordination, time management, all kinds of things. And you can search those words in LinkedIn. Coordination, time management, teamwork, those kind of things, and come up with jobs that have those things in them that you can then use your transferable skills and copy some things onto a job framework. And then you don't have to try to explain how you got there from the military. It's already right there.